Republic, which, like when you end up with a situation in history where Germany, breaks, like undoes and loses, like gets rid of its monarchy and creates this progressive democratic society, that was the, like where a huge element of the LGBT history came out of, because, you have Magnus Hirschfeld creating the Sex Institute. That's some of the earliest studies, like published, like scientific research on trans people comes out of that. Some of the earliest understanding about, gay and lesbian folks comes out of that moment. That's a great moment, a great possibility in human history. Is like, the early 20s in Germany. Where does it wind up? It doesn't have a happy ending. Where do most of the LGBT people wind up? And that's, not to put it in that kind of nightmarish scenario, but that's why we have an obligation to the present and the future.
I couldn't agree more. I always think about when the Institute, Hirschfeld's Institute, was overrun, and almost all the most famous images of the book burnings from Nazi Germany is actually burning the records of Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Research, and it was literally an entire multiple generations of data lost as a result of that. That was the funeral pyre upon which Adolf Hitler built his rise by stoking the fears of a lot of people. So I always harken back to the Weimar Republic. In our work with kids today, which is just so fledgling because we have such a small footprint and can only do so much with what we do with these tours and all, we try to really, my personal philosophy is that we need to give kids today who are coming to cognition of themselves at a much earlier age, and they're growing up in an environment where so much appears to just sort of always just magically be there already, and especially when they don't know anything about AIDS and the impact that had in defining this movement. And for me, it just becomes our obligation, if we expect these kids to become the stewards of what we have created for them, we have to give them a reason to do it. And that requires us to step outside of our comfort zones. I personally, I don't really like children all that much. I have to work with kids all the time, and it's been a revelation for me. It's been a revelation because they're just delightful. But to me, it was like, talk to me when you can vote. And then but I work with these kids, we've had little kids 10 years old take the tour. And it's like a complete alternate reality for me. So one of the things that we're trying to do with Legacy, because we're, everybody who's on the Legacy Walk, there is a lesson plan and multimedia for them, and it's now digitally accessible on the streetscape, and there's lots of good stuff going on there, but it's here on Halsted, and it's like stuck here, and we're limited because of our own funding with how much outreach we can do to bring kids here to learn that. So we've decided to kind of take the show on the road. We haven't actually issued any press on this, but we are introducing the Legacy Wall, which is the first fully realized interactive LGBT history exhibit. That is like a 20-foot one. Basically, check out this whole room. Trade show size display with 150 biographies on it, and it's all wrapped around like a deep dive into the GLSEN 2013 School Climate Survey about what happens to kids when they're exposed to this content versus what happens to them when they're not exposed to the content, and how it affects school climate, and all of the issues relating to bullying, and putting it finally together into one installation that will actually debut in Springfield in the Illinois State Capitol Library for the entirety of LGBT History Month in October, before beginning a 15-month tour in the state of Illinois and then going national in 2017. So what we're doing is we're bringing massive amounts of this content into America's heartland, specifically to start these conversations. And the other piece of it, because in November it's going to be the Illinois Safe Schools Youth Summit at Chicago State University. The installation will be there for the whole month, but we're leading a whole program that we're creating to literally take the 300 kids that we hope to come there and sit them down and basically give them a training, provide them with tools and materials for them to go back to their school and demand a meeting with their principals to ask them, what do we have to do to get LGBT content inclusion in our schools, because this is what the statistics show benefits the schools, and this is what's going to happen if something ever goes wrong in this school and you didn't have do something with it when you have the opportunity to do it. So it's a tiny little thing, and it's, you know, it's only 300 kids, and we don't know how many schools are affected, but we're trying to kind of combine sending the legacy wall on its journey through communities to begin having conversations, which on Halstead Street, half the people aren't even aware the plaques are there. They're so busy texting while they're walking by, they're not even, they see me with 20 high school kids, and it's like the plaques have materialized out of the fog in front of them. But, you know, but when you take an installation of the size of what we're envisioning and you drop it down in the middle of, you know, Peoria, and you start working with the local communities around there and the programming that they can do to start these conversations, I think that's the only way it's going to work, and it's such a tiny little thing because we're such a tiny little organization. But in the state of Illinois, my goal is to eventually have content inclusion and have it not be some like huge ordeal. You don't have to talk about sex. I can go through this entire tour without ever talking about sex. You know, it's all about identity, you know, and people's realities. So it's, when I asked about what kind of things, for me, the new frontier is we need to not only share this information with our children, because our children are going to become our caregivers, right? And we're going to be the ones that are going to need to instill a sense of stewardship in them to take this forward. And there's a lot of different people doing it, and certainly it's not just a legacy thing, but we're trying to figure out a way to get it out of the ghetto and put it out there where it's got to be, because that's where those changes need to take place. It's already happened here.
Thank you, Victor. And for those of you that don't know, Legacy Project have an October dedication ceremony where we put new plaques onto Halstead. There's a big party. Victor, if you want more details, just chat with Victor at the end. We're kind of going into our networking time. I hope that's okay, because I really want to invite Tracy to close us out with your thoughts on, bring it home. Yes.
Well, what's interesting about the whole youth thing is that there was a study, the Chicago Community Trust, which Mary Morton helped coordinate, did a study of our community 2 or 3 years ago, and the report showed that the interests, needs, and concerns of the very young LGBTQ paralleled almost exactly that of the senior LGBTQ. The issues of safety, history, all these things were almost the same. Economic concerns, all sorts of things. So that's an opportunity for us, right, to do some of the things we do much better cross-generationally, because as Victor said, we need to make sure they have an empathy to our history, right, that they understand not as an obligation, but as an honor. Wow, I can meet people who lived through Stonewall right now. There are people in our community that I could meet, and in 20 years I may not have that opportunity. So we need to kind of instill that, I think, a better sense of that. But my focus right now primarily is in launching something called the Pride Action Team. We are doing this out of a lot of the youth homeless work we've been doing. Windy City Times sponsored a Homeless Youth Summit last year, and we've been actioning a lot of the requests of the youth. We asked them what they wanted, and now we actually are listening to them. And one of the most emotional is that they don't have any storage, short of housing, which they need. They don't have any place.
Can I just say that the youth said nobody had ever asked them before, Tracy, what they wanted.
Well, what they wanted, and could they be part of the solution, right? I mean, I'm sure many people asked them and then didn't do anything with it. But because we're very under-resourced as a community, so it's real, right? So what we're trying to do is take this post-marriage momentum and not let people get off the hook. That's what happened in Canada. Many LGBT organizations in Canada went away after marriage equality. Same thing in Maryland and other places. So we can't let that happen here. There is way too much to do. So that's why we have that summit 6 months after the March on Springfield. I was like, we got to shift this momentum quickly before we even have marriage equality. Let's keep going to the next issue. So it was really phenomenal. The youth were very generous with their at the time, but one of the most passionate was storage. Where do we put our stuff if you want us to go to school? You want us to have jobs? Storage, laundry, showers. Storage, laundry, showers. Where can they get that done? They can't get it done here. They can't get it done in most of the shelters, although some of the shelters might have a shower or a laundry or both, but they don't have any storage. So our first thing is we're putting lockers into existing shelters and drop-in centers. So this weekend we're painting one at 70th and Yale, and the lockers, 67 lockers are coming in the next couple weeks. And we're putting storage wherever people will take them. People that are part of Center Halstead, we have asked them before, they've said no. We still will continue to ask. We will be happy to get you shelter. They won't cost you anything. We'll put lockers in here. So we're going to do that, and then we're also shifting gears, and Kim Hunt from Affinity Community Services announced she's stepping down, last weekend. She will be the executive director of the Pride Action Tank. And the goal of the Pride Action Tank is to take policy and research and put it into action. So we don't want to just study these issues anymore. There's been thousands of studies. We know what the answers are. We want to action solutions that the youth, and in some cases the seniors, or in housing issues. So we're going to have a sleep out November 20th at Montrose Park that every youth agency can be part of. We're going to have a tiny home design contest that people can submit their submissions. We're going to have a tiny home summit on homeless issues. We're going to have a ton of stuff. So look to Windy City Times soon, and how you can get engaged, whether it's like doing one action a year, writing a letter. There's going to be, basically we want the entire LGBTQ and allied community in the tank, and be ready for an action. So if the March on Springfield could come up now, we would have a tank all ready to go. We wouldn't have to create everything from scratch every single time we want to have a movement, do something. So safety on transgender issues, whatever it might be, we want to be able to activate, take a young activist, incubate their project for them, with them, and then send them on their way. So it's going to be really exciting. Kim Hunt's going to executive direct it. We're going to announce formally in September. She'll be starting in September, and it's going to be really fun to do.
Fantastic. And I think you just gave us our last tweet, which is, be in the think tank and be ready.
Action tank. Action.
Be in the action tank. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. That's been awesome.